Look at these. This is the perfect color for, I got some of these already, but this is what the pollinator garden is gonna look like. That color is perfect. But look at these. These have these little pink, I didn't realize that they're this flower. This is a heuchera tapestry. The little pink colors. Oh yeah, look at that. I like that. Just all sedum. That's actually not a bad idea for even, you know, where we have the wood.
This tour is brought to you by Sunday, your one-stop shop for lawn care. If you're a lawn care novice and are looking for help caring for your lawn, then you may want to consider Sunday, which takes you step by step through a lawn care regime. What's wonderful about Sunday is that they do an analysis on your lawn and tailor your lawn care based on your needs. But what I love most about what they're doing is their ecological approach. If you're going to have a lawn, you might as well do it to promote ecosystem health. But even though we strive for green lawns, that is, the color green, lawn care can be notoriously toxic between all the fertilizers and herbicides used. Sunday takes an entirely different approach and opts for ingredients that help cultivate living soil. Plus, I got to nerd out and talk healthy turf with Dr. Frank Rossi, Sunday's Chief Science Officer, who you'll eventually get to see on our other channel, Flock Finger Lakes. You can take your free lawn care analysis today and use code SRO20 for 20% off smart lawn plans. Link is in the description below.
All right, we just got out of Philadelphia and we are at Glen Mills, Pennsylvania. You may recall from, I don't even know how many years ago, it could be 2, it could be 3, I've lost track of time, but we were actually here. We did a little tour and it was kind of similar weather. It was like really not sunny, although the sun is peeking through. It's cold, it's windy, and we're back. We're back. We thought we were gonna hit a sunny day, but it doesn't matter, you know why? Because they have the shade house and it's indoors. And we're just gonna take a peek and see what kind of flowers and plants that they have. Of course, they have some outdoor flowers that I totally wanna take home with me, but we just don't have the space. But we're gonna go indoors and see some of the plants in here. How long have you been working here?
So I actually joined the brand when we were first launching in 2008. I was poached from another local garden center and part of the original buying team at that point. And was here for a few years, left to open my own design business for a few years, and then came back about 6 years ago. So I've always been tangentially related throughout the years and would come in and do freelance projects or make wreaths as a vendor for them, but I've been back in role for about 6 years now.
Wow, I didn't realize that you were one of the foundational
original,
team members.
yeah.
How has that changed over the years?
So much.
Yeah.
I mean, the industry has changed so much, so by virtue of that, we've had to evolve, but we were really one of the first people in the game as far as like thinking in a different way about this, at least on this continent. And I think that because of that, we've had to really kind of keep pace and almost outpace some of our competitors in that way. But with foliage, it's always been a big piece of what we do. It's one of our, one of our biggest annual classes as far as like the way that we generate sales over the course of the year. But with the way everything exploded, especially during COVID, it's been like a really incredible ride to watch this kind of rise to the level that it's at now.
Yeah, and just to backtrack about what you were saying about, you were kind of the first on the continent actually to think about this way. Do you mean that more as like from a lifestyle standpoint, or how do you mean for that by that?
Yeah, I think it's like taking that classic family-owned garden center model that's really plugged into communities in different ways and bringing it to a corporate perspective where you kind of have a bit more worldview and maybe a slightly more elevated approach, but really mixing the hard goods with the green goods and kind of coming up with ways that you can infuse natural life into your lifestyle across the board, inside and out. So, I think from a design perspective, we've always had a slightly larger view because of the company that we work with, and that's just evolved over the years in different ways,
And with the rise of houseplants, even prior to the pandemic, How has that shifted the decor side of the business and the plant side of the business? Who's kind of taken the the reins now?
Right. Yeah. I mean, both are really important. You know, our plant business is largely still four-wall business. We have a percentage of that works on our site, but especially when it comes to hard goods, there's so much more breadth that you can hit in direct sales than you can hit in a four-wall situation, and we have the opposite impact, right? Like this is a really heavily penetrated class here at the four-wall stores, and I think that what has shifted internally is a lot of like how we think about and merchandise it throughout the year. It used to be that houseplants would have a huge moment in the early spring, like kind of in that spring transitional moment. And then they would kind of be de-emphasized and we would shift to other things. And now it's like, it always has a presence in our home store. It's always a big emphasis here.
Yeah. Well, I've even noticed from like, I think I was here maybe 2 years ago or
Right
whatever.
before the pandemic.
Yeah, right before the pandemic. And I've already seen like a little bit more of a shift. You have some of these like large aroids coming in and everything. How has that shifted like your sourcing of plants? Like, are you working with the same suppliers? Did you have to go out and seek new suppliers in order to be able to meet some of the demands or the expectations of buyers?
We, haven't shifted too much because I've always had really great sourcing partners. I think they got more nimble and more in the game, and they were listening to our feedback for what we wanted in a way that's been driving the industry in a really interesting way. But really partnering, we've always traveled a lot, which is another way that we do things differently here. So I go and see my growers in Florida every year, sometimes twice a year, and I go to California twice a year to see our growers. And those pieces really allow us to, A, have boots on the ground and understand what the product is looking like coming from different areas, but also the ability to kind of be in the growers' ears and feed them what we're looking for and kind of like prioritize things for them, I think has really changed the game for us internally. Yeah.
And then where do you think like your direction is going to be heading, a year or 2 years from now? Like what are you seeing and what are you thinking about? Like, hey, I'm staying on top of the competition.
Right, yeah.
Because you do have that kind of that corporate level of like competitiveness, if you will.
Yeah. And I mean, now that there's so much more interest, there's so many more small shops in the game, and I feel like the difference between us and them is that they're a little bit less afraid of like a higher price point thing. And with us, it's got to be a blend. We've got to be able to hit kind of all the different demographics and needs of our customer. But I think over the next few years, to me, it's interesting to see how plant trend is shifting. The Laradas of the world are definitely like going in a different way. And I think that there's some fun, new, exciting floor plants coming in. I think that as people have maybe hit max capacity with their collections, I think that there's some more nuanced things that start to happen with like what you're collecting and why. What am I successful with? What works in my space? What's important to me and what brings me satisfaction seems to kind of be the things that are driving the collectors now. Much deeper dives into Hoya. It's something that I've kind of gotten into. I feel like, a big palm.
Yeah. Immune to it.
Exactly. I think palms, for us have been a big thing. I've been obsessed with La Koala for years, and that's a thing that's kind of started to hit a little bit more for us in the past year or so.
Yeah.
So really kind of taking chances on newer categories that maybe aren't hitting in mainstream yet is something that we try to do, but also thinking critically about what the customer hasn't seen, where we might have sourcing power that others don't. I have a lot of space here. I really get to play with the assortment. There's a lot that we can mess around. I mean, this is insane,
Yeah, this is huge.
Yeah. I've never seen anything like that on the market.
Yeah. And now that you see how big it is, look at this. I mean, it looks like a lobster.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Overturned a lobster, you look at that pattern.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess also just thinking about how, this plant trend will shift as we maybe exit COVID and like what that means for people who maybe aren't at their house all the time and how that changes their watering schedule and stuff like that. So we're thinking about that across categories. How can we give people better watering solutions? How can we give people better care solutions for their plants? So just a little bit of everything.
Well, it sounds like a tall task, and you are expanding your team as well. We have Jess here.
Jess here.
Rah-rah on the back.
So Jess joined us last year in the height of some staffing challenges. So we've done a long onboard, and now she's transitioning to be the foliage buyer for the brand, kind of moving forward, which is really exciting.
And so you're going to be doing most of the traveling then?
Yeah, we'll both. Okay. We'll probably both go. For a little while. But
Very cool.
I know. Get her to Florida and California and see those growers. Yeah.
One of the things that I think that Terrain is really known for, and I didn't mention before, is that kind of like middle ground between taking plants and turning them into a real decorative element, and that may mean even with be dried plants, or it might be you know, wreaths or everything like that. I feel like those are places that you really excel.
For sure. And I think that that's part of the way that we approach the brand that is different, is that we're trying to think about nature infused in every way. So the product is largely either inspired by nature or encouraging you to incorporate nature into your space in a different way. And I think that it continues to evolve. I think that the dried trend that you're seeing in the past year, there's all new opportunity for doing that, but dried has always kind of been in our DNA. It's just more colorful now than it's ever been.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This is phenomenal. I think we're gonna just take a look at more of your inventory here, and at least we could like compare what we saw last time.
Yeah.
And I was actually getting distracted by your outdoor plants too. Now I have a piece of land that we can plant outdoors.
Fun. Yeah, totally different game, right?
Totally different game. It's like expanded my worldview. I even can't even remember some of the indoor plant names. I was like, wait, what's this plant?
Right, yeah. Totally distracted. Yeah. I love it.
Well. Look at what we have here. So they have definitely gone on the aroid bandwagon. And you'll see you have like the rare plant. This is a pretty large version of Anthurium crystallinum. See that? Quite large. And then you have your Monstera deliciosa right here. Yeah. And all your ferns, you can see here your spleniums. You have your blue star ferns. These are very easy to take care of, your Philbodium aureums. And these are your crocodile ferns. You can see it has more of a reptilian skin. And then you have your rabbit's foot. These are all very easy to propagate. So if you see any of these little kind of rhizomatous stems right here, just make sure that it has a little place where there's a leaflet growing. Give it a nice cut. Put that onto some sterile potting medium and give it a little humidity, and it'll start to root up very easily. All right. So lush. Here's some of your cacti, both jungle cactus and not so jungle cactus. So you have some of your kind of Schlumbergeras, or this doesn't look like a Schlumbergera. This looks more like an Easter cactus. So it's Ripsalidopsis. Okay. And then you have your fire stick or pencil stick cacti, right? So this is your Euphorbia turicali. These have really oranged up. It almost looks like they're spray painted, but they're not actually. This is the color that they turn when you give them really good light. So if you're not giving them great light, they're just going to be green pencil sticks essentially. Epiphyllum oxypetalum. This is one of those night blooming cacti. Now, epiphyllums have many different color flowers, so I'm not even sure what kind of color flower this is, but you could find them in the deep reds, the fuchsias, the whites. And then of course you have the plants that you would normally, I call curtain plants. So these are the ones that you would hang near your window and have them drape like curtains. So you have a lot of curios here. So you have a curio radicans, you have this string of dolphins. You know, I'd love to hear from people in string of dolphins because these also start to flatten out. They look more like manta rays after a while, but I might not be giving them as intense sunlight as possible, especially in the winter months when the light starts to wane in your windows. So I'm curious if people could maintain the dolphin-like shape of this plant, because mine kind of start to flatten out and, like I said, look like little manta rays floating. This is a Selenocerius. This one says Epiphyllum sharktooth, but I'm pretty sure this is a Selenocerius. And then you have some random Kalanchoes right here. I'm not sure why they're in with the hanging plants, but they are there. And then if you want some things that look like a little bit more topiary-esque, these look like they're herbs trained. So this is like a lavender that looks like a standard on a standard stem, and then some rosemary, if you will. And this could be perfect if you just want this for your kitchen area, for instance, if you are somebody who's a cook, like to cook with if you have a culinary mindset, you could have your rosemary there. Or if you want something that's really scented, Santolina, this is a gorgeous Mediterranean plant. Not really something that somebody cooks with, but it does have a really nice scent. And this looks like more geranium over here, but really small leaved geranium. And sometimes these have really nice scents. Sometimes it smells like lemon, sometimes it smells like roses. This is definitely like it's lemon drop scent, which is really nice. But I've smelled geraniums or pelargoniums that smell more like Coca-Cola or socks or like wet dog. They all have some really interesting scents, but the ones that you'd see like in the commercial market usually have a nice scent like a rose or like a limoncello or a citronella. Okay, we got some more beautiful colored plants here. So it looks like they started to pair some of the color together. So you have a lot of these Japortia / Calatheas, what we know as. And you can see that they have like the really beautiful purple bottoms and speckled tops, some Marantas with the pink flecking. And then these are Aeshcananthus, but they have the often called zebra hanging basket vine, I believe. And they have like the purple bottoms. And even some of these Hoyas, that they start to redden up along the edges, or sometimes under the bottom, you'll see like little pink petioles. Same thing here. These plants are very finicky. You can even see when they're in the market here. You could already see that they are pretty finicky plants. They get a lot of brown edging. Really depends on what the humidity. One bad sun is going to probably start to crisp them around the edges. But surprisingly, these have really strong roots. And if you feel that, your leaves are looking a little lackluster, you may even be able to cut back the plant and have some really strong roots and just let it rest for a while. Japortia rufibarba. So a lot of folks love this plant because not only does it have these really beautiful green leaves with purple bottoms, but they're also quite fuzzy, even though it may not appear to be fuzzy, but you could even see in the petiole the fuzz along here. And if you're lucky enough, you may actually get to see these in bloom, and they produce a lot of, I would say, like this golden yellow flowers all along the bottoms right here. So sometimes you'd expect like a flower spike to kind of perk up from the center, but actually the yellow flowers emerge from the base. Looks really attractive. So if we look over here, we have some Cerapias. So these are called string of hearts. This is Cerapias linearis subspecies woodii. And they have all different forms. I've been seeing some more that are more spade shape or look like little lines, but this is the form that we most often see. And some folks get this confused with actually this plant, which I'll show here. This is Hoya curtisii. So you can see they have fairly similar leaves and even very similar patterning. But you can see that the Cerapia is more of heart shape, and the Hoya curtisii has a little bit more of a tip at the end of the leaf. These are also far more succulent than the Cerapias, and these are actually in the same family of Apocynaceae. So they're in the same family as like Hoyas, milkweeds, a number of things like that, but very different flowers. And then of course you have your peperomias. I think, one of the easiest peperomias to actually grow. And when you start to see this in botanic gardens, you see these are very close cut, very close to the ground, but they actually do quite a bit of trailing. So if you let them grow pretty long, then they'll just kind of flop over. Similar to like if you have like if you have long grass in the yard or whatever, some of the grass will eventually just start to tip over, and it actually looks really nice. So this could actually be a nice textural ground cover if you're growing it out in a larger trough, if you will. Alocasias, these have become very popular. I remember when I got my first Alocasia reginula. They call this black velvet, so I don't know if that's a specific cultivar, but it looks exactly like the Alocasia reginula. And it has the purple bottoms and the green top. And I remember when I first saw this, probably like 6 or 7 years ago in a greenhouse, I was like, oh my God, what is that? And Alocasias haven't really picked up popularity until maybe the last 2 or 3 years. And you start to see far more cultivars, which we started to see in Singapore probably 4 years ago now. They probably had them even before that. So this is Maharani, Alocasia Maharani. Very same texture and feel as the Alocasia reginula. Let's see if I could find any more. This is more like a poly. So this is Alocasia poly. You can see it has much thinner. This to me is a spider mite magnet. I mean, honestly, I give so many people props who can actually grow this plant without getting spider mites. I just don't have the right conditions for them in my house currently. Let's go behind here because you can see Ficus triangularis. So this one's a variegated version. See if I could find any with any fruits on it. When we think of the fig fruit, you think of that nice big juicy fig fruit, but not all of them actually create like big juicy figs, and that's the case of this one. They only get like kind of small jewel-shaped figs. Very striking leaf though. And then you have some pretty large Hoyas here. I mean, these are huge Hoya macrophyllavaragadas. This would be a great curtain plant. This I found that these plants actually, flower very early for me in particular, and I have very small ones with just a couple nodes, and they seem to flower very readily. So I'd be curious to hear if others have the same situation as I do, because not all Hoyas bloom very easily, but this one for me is a constant ever bloomer. Then you have this beautiful Cebu blue right here, which actually, if you give this a place, it looks like a beautiful hanging plant, but if you actually give it a place to crawl up, the leaves will start to get bigger and we'll start to develop some fenestrations with it as well. And as we were just doing this tour, they were getting more and more plant deliveries in. You have a number of snake plants right here. And here's an underserved kind of floor plant right here. This is called a clusia. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of a ficus. It actually even has a latex like a ficus. But this is a nice succulent stemmed plant that could grow quite large and would be a really good floor plant as well. You have your Alocasia zammiifolias. This is a raven. And this looks like a little zenzi, but I'm not sure. Okay, this is called a Alocasia zammiifolia zammi. So these are little smaller versions of this, kind of like more curly leaves. And it looks like back here they had an overflow of snake plants, and they kind of put a back wall right here. And then one little special thing that you'll see, this one is in bloom. Which is something that you don't always see.
Stay tuned on Plant One On Me for more botanical tours, talks, and how-tos. And if you're looking to further your knowledge on the plant kingdom, then have a look at our various online courses from Troubleshoot Your Houseplants to the Houseplant Masterclass. Additionally, we have a second channel we started last year called Flock Finger Lakes, where we cover more on outdoor gardening, habitat restoration, agroforestry, and even more. So check that out if that interests you. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next episode.